This is Pedro Miguel Costa speaking. Welcome to CineKenta Studios. I've been absent for a while, but now that I have something interesting to tell you, is 2025, and if you know my channel, you know I've been working with some Red cameras, some DJI cameras, some Sony, whatever. And the thing is, I thought a lot about before buying this camera here. Yeah, it's a Cine Alta Sony F55. I think it's from 2012. Yeah, it has more than 10 years old, but even now the FX3, FX6, FX9, they don't have what this camera have. So what is happening with the camera industry? It's you have a camera that is from 2012 and newer professional Sony cameras that can't even match the specifications of this camera. Of course, it's a different segment. This is a cinema segment, and I know that FX9, the bitrate for a normal codec is 300 megabits, and this one do 480. That is a normal video codec, but we have also the possibility to shoot RAW. Yeah, RAW, not any kind of RAW. It's a real RAW. Oh, this microphone is bugging me. Yeah, it's a simple Rode microphone that I put here on the Sony F55. And this video is about my thoughts. I have some footage that I made with the Sony, and the thing here is, how do you know it is an F55? You have this silver ring, the F5 have the black ring. And in 2012, what was the main specifications of this camera? The only Sony Venice 1 and 2 can overcome this camera, not any camera. So you can pick up every other camera from Sony lineup, they can match the specifications of this camera. So let's start to talk about the specifications of this camera. Remember, this is from 2012. This camera can record Sony codecs, it can record Cine AI, S-Log3. It have a two-door slot for, you know, this SXX cards, and oh, not like this. And here on the back, you have the RAW model. And why is that important? This is the RAW model. Yeah. Now imagine you are in 2012 and you have this camera with this RAW model, and this RAW model can offer you 4K, not UHD, really 4K DCI, up to 60 frames per second, but not in 10-bit, not in 12-bit, not in 14, in 16-bit RAW. Yeah. So this camera had the possibility, the capability to record 4K DCI 16-bit RAW. in this kind of cards. Yeah. So this is a AXXM of a terabyte. They offer you, this is a S24. It offers a constant bit rate of 2.4 gigabits per second. Yeah, 2.4 gigabits per second. It's how much this camera will suck up when it's recording RAW. Another interesting thing about this camera, it has a very nice, not so bright, but very nice OLED EVF. It has built-in ND filters, actually two, 0.9 and 1.8. So we are talking, I think, about 3 and 6 stops. And why? Because the base ISO when you're recording S-Log3 is 1250 ISO base. Another thing that I like about this camera is these 4 SDI outputs and these 4 SDI connections that they will do timecode in, out, gen lock, and whatsoever. Another thing that is very interesting about this camera, remember, this camera is 2012, we are in 2025, and Metabones, they did a special adapter for this camera. So this camera has a special mount, an FZ mount, whatever, I think is a FE, whatever, I don't know. But they made a special mount that allows you to put Canon lenses, and you know, you cannot control aperture in these lenses unless the camera controls it, or you have this special adapter that communicates with the camera in terms of power. And here on the side, as you can see, there's a scale of aperture. So when you rotate this scale, the lens will be with an aperture that is fixed here. I think this adapter also can do auto iris, auto aperture, because the camera can control it by measuring the exposure. So this camera has another secret weapon. Yeah, the secret weapon of this camera is, now we are talking about cameras that they have stack sensors, that they have a very high speed readout, but this camera doesn't need it because it has a global shutter. So imagine if it is this, this is your sensor, a rolling shutter will read line by line very fast. This sensor captures the whole sensor at once. So no artifacts, no anything. It's very important. Let's go back to the RAW recorder. This is the R5, but there are also an R7. The R7 is the latest recorder for Sony Venice. It's compatible with this camera, and now the things are getting even more interesting. So this camera, 2012, it could record 4K DCI 60 frames per second at 16-bit color depth. But with the R7, it doubles. So with the R7, you can shoot 4K 120 frames per second at 16-bit RAW. So what is happening? So 13 years ago, we had a camera with global shutter, 16-bit RAW recording, everything this camera is packed with, and now the professional cameras cannot even match these specifications. So there's a big gap between professional cameras and cinema cameras. This is the Well, Cine Alta. Well, everything that has Cine Alta is the professional cinema line of Sony. So if you don't know what is Cine Alta, Google it. You'll find it very interesting. And I only made a few tests with this camera, but for now it is amazing me. Another very, very interesting about this camera, I don't know if you can read here, it says ARRI. And it says here top plate for F55. What happened here? So ARRI, they made top plate, they made base plate for this camera. So I don't know why did it happen. We are in 2012 and ARRI made parts for this camera. It's a kind of, I don't know if it is, you know, this camera once was the official camera for Panavision. It would be easy to find these cameras saying here Panavision. So this, I don't know for how long, but this was the official cinema camera of digital cinema camera for Panavision. It is possible also to remove this metabones adapter and to put in a PL mount adapter. But let's go back a little to give you kind of comparing stuff. This is the Red Dragon. It has a bigger sensor than this camera, because this camera, the Sony, is equipped with a Super 35. This camera also say here, also say here Epic S35, but the truth, oh, why am I out of focus? The truth is this camera has a bigger sensor than S35. It has by the way, I'm recording with Dji Pocket 3, Osmo Action 5 and another Osmo Action 5. And for some reason the Pocket 3 is losing the focus. Even I selected showcase product. And you are seeing, yeah, see the difference. This is Sony, this is red. This camera only records RAW. There's no other format. The Sony can record Sony formats, that's strange stuff they record, but they are good codecs. So it's a bigger camera, but it can record several formats. It even can record RAW and proxies at the same time. The RAW goes to the back of the recorder, and the proxies files goes into these cards. Okay. I have made this box so I can store some cards that I didn't have the original package, so done. And this camera is so small comparing to this Sony. Of course, we have the RAW recorder, but this camera only records RAW. And remember, these cameras only start here. This is an adapter. It's from ear to ear. It's very, very small. It records 6K, 16-bit. So what they have in common, they both record 4K in 16-bit, but this can go higher up in terms of resolution and in terms of resolution and frame rate. This can do 4K at 150 frames, can do 2K at 240. Also Sony can do 240. But this camera is they have a very interesting accessory. It's the PL mount. Now we have these two PL mounts. Yeah, they are very similar PL mounts. They are made of titanium, but look on the back. This has a hole, and this has some kind of glass. What is this glass? This glass is an electronic ND filter. So like Sony FX has a built-in electronic ND filter, this density of this filter can be set by touching the screen, increasing or decreasing in very small steps of ND filter. But it also can do a thing called global shutter and soft shutter. So this mount has the ability to transform this rolling shutter into a global shutter and also a soft shutter that go between frames, softening the transition like a sine wave. I think, yeah, this would probably cost by the time more than $4,000 US. And in terms of price range, I think what I have here, it was almost the same price that I have here on the Sony. The body itself would cost of the Sony 30,000, not 30,000, and probably the raw recorder another 16,000. So you end up with almost plus cards and something plus, you end up with easy $50,000. Do I use these cameras a lot? No, I use these cameras only sometimes for bigger projects, some music videos. And now it will be, I will reveal you something. I have red camera, Sony camera, and you are wondering now, what camera do you work most of the time? This one. This camera here. You know, it is the S1H. So we are in 2025. The S1R2 just came out. It's a smaller body that I think is very wrong. A small body, I think real filmmakers don't want smaller bodies. This size of body is perfect. This camera has 14 plus stops of dynamic range. This has 16 plus stops of dynamic range, and when you are recording in HDRX mode, it can go up to 20 stops of dynamic range by doubling the video tracks. You do a A and a B track, and the B track can be underexposed by a few stops, and it can increase the dynamic range. The Sony has, I think, around 13 stops of dynamic range. It's not low, but yeah, this camera in terms of dynamic range, I've worked with Arri, Sony, every cameras. In terms of dynamic range, the red is huge. Older models, newer models, it's a matter of taste. I prefer these older models. The image is more organic. But this is my main camera of work. And when it is combined with a Blackmagic Video Assist 12G, you can record 12-bit RAW. For this camera to be perfect, what I would do is maybe pass from 14 stops plus of dynamic range to 16 or 17 and put inside ND filters. And you know, this is a full frame sensor, is huge. Yeah. This camera is very, very clean. And another thing that I will share with you, when they say, I have Sony, I have Canon, I have all the brands. So don't say that I'm tendencies to say, oh, this camera is better than the other. But when they say, oh, Sony FS7 Mark III or FX3, they are the king of low light, is a lie. Yeah, it's really a lie. Because we made a job at night with FX3, FX30. I don't remember the other camera. I think it was the Alpha 7R, no, Alpha 7 Mark IV, and with this camera. And believe me, in low light, this camera blows out the competition. The blacks are very clean, very deep, and this is the king of low light, not Sony's. Yeah, it's marketing aggressive. Panasonic doesn't do a very aggressive marketing, but this is the king of low light. And another thing that this camera has that no other mirrorless have is this. This you can configure as flash sync or as time code in. Yes, this camera accepts via this port here, it accepts time code in. For the past few days, I've been watching a lot of videos, people talking about the Lumix S1R Mark II, saying this and that, but I think none of them ever owned one. And I've been working with this camera for 5 years, and I know I'm talking. This camera was good 5 years ago and still good today. It's really my first choice for many projects because it has in-body stabilization is amazing. You can adapt, of course, other lenses, but this camera is my working camera. Even for photography, they say, oh, I don't have a face detection autofocus. I do photography, corporate photography with this. I never complain. Of course, I don't do sport, but this is my main work camera. And my other main cameras to work, to give support to this one, of course, is this Pocket 3 and these two Action 5s. Yeah, I have here so a red, a Sony, a Lumix. I have on my drawer also 5D Mark III, Canon 5D Mark III, and Sony 7R Mark II. This is my cameras. I think I'm not missing. Oh, I have some old cameras there, but broadcast camera, but I don't really use them. This Sony F55 is good for product. It's good for commercial. It's good for if you want to record a long talk, because it can hold up for several hours in terms of storage and battery. It uses V-mount battery. Yeah, and a week ago I was doing some, breakdance event on a skate pool, and in the end I will leave you with some images that I made with Sony. Another thing that I didn't mention here
You seeing this gray part? Yeah, I designed it in Fusion 360. I 3D printed, and this slot here, it holds up the DJI Focus Pro LiDAR system. Yeah, so this camera, this Sony, is equipped with, when I want to do autofocus, I put here the LiDAR system. I grab here on this rail the grip, and I can do autofocus. I think I'm not missing any other major. Oh, another thing that I love on this camera is XLR inputs. You can do 2 analogs or 4 digital. And another thing that a lot of people complain about Sony is the menu system. Yeah, this kind of long menu like Sony do, but they introduced these quick access buttons that they improved over the years by firmware updating. This camera is on firmware 9.2, and when you press camera, you have several options for camera, file, time code, and view. This screen doesn't view anything. You have to view it on the viewfinder or on external monitor. Another thing that annoys me is this camera doesn't have false color, but they have zebras. They can configure for low and for high. Yeah, so this camera can take up to 2 cards. Here I have these 2 cards. It's SXX Pro Plus, 128 gigabytes. These cards can be used to record internally 4K 60. Yeah, they have to be very fast cards. So these cards are rated as 3.5 gigabits per second. Yeah. These cards were very, very expensive because these cards could go into hot water, they could be freeze, they could be shocked, dropped, and they still be good. Very, very reliable cards. I have some cards of this, some slower cards to record normal codecs. But for now, I'm enjoying very much this camera. It was a camera that I've been watching for a long time. So I forgot why this camera is so good, even though it has 13 stops of dynamic range. Of course, you can do 16-bit raw recording, but this camera, all of these cameras that I'm recording with, they can see 33% of RGB because it's math. Each pixel has green, green, red, blue. So you split the RGB by 3, you ended up with 33.3333% of RGB capture. So these cameras see 33% of RGB. The Sony, it sees the double of it. It sees 66% of RGB. Why? Because this sensor, the Bayer pattern is not oriented by vertical, horizontal. The Bayer pattern is rotated 45 degrees, and by adjacent pixels, it can calculate and grab more colors. So this camera actually sees more colors than any other. The only camera that sees 100% RGB, there are film cameras, there are some broadcast cameras, and Sigma with a Foveon sensor, but they don't record video. So these are the cameras that really capture 100% of RGB. And another thing that this camera has really, really interesting, a thing that I never saw before. It can record in RGB, because these cameras, none of them record in RGB, it records in a different format. But this camera, when record 1080p in RGB mode, it can suck up as much memory as a 4K DCI, 60 frames per second. Yeah, you can really suck it up for 480 megabits per second in 1080p. So this video was to give you some context about the cameras and why the industry has given you so much a few years ago and now are giving you so little. And if you don't understand what I'm meaning, this camera is 13 years old. It has global shutter, it has NDs, it has raw recording at 16-bit, and on and on and on. And now you can even get a camera to record internally 12-bit. Yeah, you have a real Alexa that records internally raw 12-bit, but even this camera is from 2014. It records 16-bit color. So my question is, if the technology advanced so much, why the cameras don't give you 12-bit internally? Why? If these cameras could do it 12, 13 years ago, why we are stuck on 10-bit? Of course, the size matters. Yeah, this camera were huge, but in terms of technology and processing, I think there is power enough to put these cameras to record 12-bit. And I think when the S1H Mark II will be out, I think they will go in that direction. And I think the only brand that can go in that direction is Lumix, Panasonic. And why? Why the other cameras brands don't go in that direction? Sony, Canon, because they all have cinema cameras. So they don't want their smaller bodies do as much as their cinema lines. But Lumix now doesn't have cinema cameras. So Lumix, it doesn't care. It doesn't have a segment of cameras to protect. So Sony has to protect Burano, Venice. Canon has to protect the C500, C700. Nikon now has the red cameras, so it will not give you on smaller bodies the same power as its red cameras, because Nikon acquire red. So the only brand that can really look into the future by thinking, oh, I don't want to hurt my cinema segment, is Panasonic. So Panasonic, I think probably on April, they will release or announce the 71H Mark II. And believe me, it will be the best mirrorless camera for video. For me, it is now. It was 5 years ago, and the new camera will come out, and it will be, yeah. Remember, this was the first mirrorless certified by Netflix. I hope to see good news from Lumix in the future, but I also enjoy my cameras, so I can have ready to go. If I have a project, depending of the project, I can choose between a Canon, Lumix, Sony. I can choose, so I'm not really. I had an real Alexa. I sold it because it is big camera, very heavy. It doesn't offer me anything more than this. I can do this more with this than I could do a real Alexa, even in RAW. Yeah, I can shoot 12-bit RAW cleaner with this than I shot with a real Alexa. And that's it. Watch the images that I have made with the Sony F55, and I hope you subscribe the channel, give it a like. My name is Pedro Miguel Costa. I live in Portugal. I'm a filmmaker, photographer, cinematographer. I design parts. I do whatever I want. This is my life, and yeah, this is my 100% full-time job as a filmmaker. So please subscribe, give it a like, thumbs up. Thank you very much for watching.